Frontier town dusk. The wind came low and dry across the high plains, pushing grit through the empty street like restless whispers. Lanterns flickered in dusty windows. A stray dog padded down the boardwalk before vanishing into an alley. Jacob Hartley, 40s, emerged from the livery stable, a broad-shouldered man with weathered skin and eyes that had seen too much war and too many lonely years. He slid the heavy barn door shut with a dull thud, then fastened the iron latch. His life since the war had been a quiet one. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that made a man start talking to his own shadow. Then, the sound of footsteps behind him. Light. Hesitant. He turned. Two figures stood at the far end of the street, framed by the dying orange light of sunset. A boy, Sam, 12, thin, sharp-eyed, carrying himself like someone older than his years. A little girl, Emily, 7, clung to his side, her small fingers wrapped in the hem of his tattered coat. Both wore clothes that might have been warm once, but now hung threadbare, caked with dust. They stopped in front of him, their faces pale from the cold. Sam stepped forward, eyes locked on Jacob's, and held out a small folded piece of paper. Jacob took it slowly, as if afraid it might disintegrate in his hands. His brow furrowed. Insert. Handwritten letter. Jacob, if you're reading this, I'm gone. The ring inside is yours. It was always yours. Take care of them. Anna. The gold wedding band slipped from the fold and landed in his palm. Jacob froze. The name hit him like a rifle shot. Anna, the only woman he'd ever loved. The woman he'd lost so many years ago, swallowed up by circumstances he still couldn't think about without tasting bitterness in his mouth. He stared at the ring. The metal was warm from the paper, but it burned in his hand like fire. Jacob, quiet, to himself. Anna, he looked up at the boy. Livery stable, night. The stove hissed softly as wet clothes dried over its edge. The smell of horse and hay mixed with the faint scent of rain drifting in through the cracks. Sam sat cross-legged on the dirt floor, Emily curled against him, her small frame shivering despite the heat. Jacob sat on a stool, elbows on his knees, the wedding ring turning over and over in his fingers. Jacob, where did you get this? Sam's eyes didn't flinch. Sam, she said you'd keep us safe. Safe. The word echoed in Jacob's head. From what? From who? His gut tightened. Anna had always been strong, stubborn, not the type to ask for help unless the situation was desperate. A sound cut through the night. A knock at the front door. Not gentle, not friendly. 3 solid thumps. Then silence. Then another 3. Jacob's jaw clenched. He crossed the room in 2 strides, blew out the lantern, and the stable was plunged into darkness. Jacob, whisper, we're leaving. Now. Alley behind the stable, night. The cold bit hard as Jacob led the children out the back, boots crunching on frost. From the street, heavy boots pounded on the boardwalk. A man cursed low, another barked an order. Jacob didn't look back. They slipped between 2 buildings, disappearing into the black alleys of the sleeping town, the gold ring still warm in his fist. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. Jacob felt in his bones that this was only the beginning. Back alley night. Jacob moved fast, keeping the kids close. His eyes scanned every shadow. From the front street came the muffled bang of the livery door being kicked in. A man's voice barked, "Search everywhere." Jacob's hand went to the worn Colt on his hip. He didn't draw, not yet. They reached the far end of the alley, where moonlight spilled over the fence line. Sam, whisper, who are they? Jacob's gaze darted down the street. Jacob, not the kind of men you ask questions to. Boy, keep moving. Edge of town, night. They slipped past shuttered shops and darkened saloons. A drunken laugh erupted from somewhere inside the Silver Spur, but no one saw them. Then, a glint of light. Jacob caught it just in time. the flash of a rifle barrel in a window above. Jacob, down. He pushed Sam and Emily into the cover of stacked crates. A shot split the night, with splintered inches from Jacob's head. Emily gasped, eyes wide. Jacob grabbed her, pulled her tight against him, then motioned Sam forward. They ducked through a side passage, boots slipping on frozen mud. Train yard night. The smell of coal smoke hung heavy. Empty freight cars stood in rows, black shapes in the dim light. Jacob guided the kids between them, every sound magnified. The clink of his spurs, Emily's soft breathing, the distant shouts of men growing closer. Man's voice, OS. They're heading for the yard. Cut him off. Jacob swore under his breath. He lifted Emily into an open cattle car and motioned for Sam to climb. Then he pulled himself in after them. Crouching low, through the slats, he saw 3 men moving fast. Rough coats, wide hats pulled low, and the swagger of men who'd done killing before. One of them carried a badge, but it wasn't a lawman's badge Jacob recognized. Cattle car night. Jacob waited until the men passed, his grip on the Colt tightening. Sam leaned close. Sam. Quiet, urgent. They work for him. Jacob. For who? Sam's jaw tightened. He glanced at Emily, then back at Jacob. Sam. The man Anna ran from. Jacob's blood ran cold. There was more to this than a lost love and a wedding ring. Outskirts of town night. Jacob led them out the far side of the yard, sticking to the shadows until the open prairie stretched before them. The stars were sharp against the black sky. The wind carried only the sound of the grass. But Jacob knew, men like that didn't give up. They'd be coming, and they wouldn't stop until they had the kids. Jacob adjusted his hat, looked at the long road ahead, and made his decision. Jacob, we ride before dawn. Abandoned cabin, Piari dawn. A pale light crept over the frozen treetops. The cabin sat hunched in a clearing, its roof sagging under snow. Inside, the faint sound of children's breathing drifted through the cold air. Outside, Jacob and EZRA 60s, a grizzled trapper with a weather-beaten face, worked in silence. They wedged broken furniture against windows, nailed shutters closed, and stacked firewood into a rough barricade at the door. Ezra broke the silence as he slid cartridges into his rifle. Ezra, they'll come at first light. Jacob paused, staring at the gold ring in his palm, the same one that had been warm from Anna's letter. Jacob, Anna was my wife once. I let her go to keep her safe, and she still died running. Ezra's eyes softened. He stepped closer, his voice low and steady. Ezra, then don't let them take what's left of her. Jacob closed his fist around the ring. Snowy clearing dawn. The fog rolled in thick, clinging to the pines. From its depths, 6 riders emerged, their horses' breath steaming in the cold. At their head was Brant 50s, heavy-shouldered, cruel-eyed, the kind of man who believed the land and the people on it belonged to him. Brant reined in his horse and called out, his voice carrying in the still air. Brant, hand over the kids, Hartley. You know they're not yours. Jacob stepped forward from the cabin porch, rifle cradled in his arms, the barrel steady. Jacob, they're not yours either. A tense silence. Then, gunfire erupted. Cabin perimeter, continuous. The first shot took down one of Brant's men, snow exploding red beneath him. Ezra, firing from an upstairs window, dropped 2 more before they even reached cover. Bullets slammed into the cabin walls, splintering wood. Jacob ducked, returned fire, and caught another man in the shoulder, spinning him into the snow. A shot grazed Jacob's arm, tearing through his coat. He gritted his teeth, ignoring the sting, and worked the lever on his rifle. Snowy clearing moments later. Brant charged through the chaos, roaring like a bull. Jacob met him head-on, slamming into him and knocking the rifle from his hands. The 2 men went down hard in the snow. They grappled, rolling, fists landing heavy blows. Jacob's breath came in harsh bursts. The world narrowed to the man in front of him and the promise burning in his chest. Finally, with a surge of strength, Jacob drove Brant back into the drift, his knee on his chest. "Jacob, it ends here." Brant's eyes flickered, then went still. Cabin later. The storm had passed, leaving the clearing quiet except for the soft creak of pines in the wind. Ezra bound Jacob's arm with a strip of cloth. The children ran to him, Emily burying her face against his chest, Sam gripping his coat with fierce relief. Jacob reached into his pocket, drew out the ring, and threaded it onto a leather cord. He knelt and placed it gently around Emily's neck. "Jacob, your mama wanted you safe. That's my promise now." Emily touched the ring, her small fingers closing over it. Mountain Ridge sunset. The sun dipped low, painting the snow in gold and blood-red light. Jacob, Ezra, and the children walked along the ridge, the valley stretching wide and open before them. The road ahead was long and uncertain, but they walked it together. Some promises are made in whispers. Some are forged in gunfire and snow. But the ones that matter, they last a lifetime. If this story reached you, like, comment, and subscribe for more tales of love, loss, and the wild American frontier.